All right, let's jump into our deep dive today. And we are looking at something pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah.
The Stand Up for Science rally in Washington, D.C., March 7th, 2025.
Okay.
We've got some really fascinating firsthand accounts from folks who were there.
Right.
So we're going to get a sense of what it was like to actually be there on the ground.
You know, it's worth mentioning, this wasn't just a D.C. thing.
Right.
There were actually 32 of these rallies that happened all across the U.S.
Simultaneously on the same day.
Yeah.
So clearly something was going on that had so many people concerned. So
Right.
what was it that had the scientific community sort of riled up at this point?
Well, you've got to think back. It's early 2025.
Okay.
And the Trump administration is making some pretty big moves that are really, shaking things up in the research world.
Okay.
And there's talk of these big funding cuts, and there's just a sense that scientific progress is kind of under threat.
Can you give us some specific examples of what you mean by these big moves, what was going on?
Well, there were a few things. They were planning to pull out of the World Health Organization.
Yeah.
Yeah, the WHO, and that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Right. And then you've got all this upheaval in federally funded research. There are disruptions, firings.
Oh, wow.
People were getting fired. They were even changing how information was presented on federal websites and, messing with data and stuff.
Oh, so it was really like a fundamental shift.
Yeah, there was a lot of uncertainty, for scientists at this point.
Yeah. And in all of this, we hear about this woman, Candace Lowther.
Right.
She's a science instructor and also a breast cancer survivor.
Right.
So for her, the stakes are very, very personal.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For her, science isn't just some abstract idea,
Yeah.
She sees it as directly linked to her recovery and, her well-being. So to have that progress threatened was a huge deal for her.
And she wasn't alone.
No, not at all.
In fact, we see a lot of stories like this, right? From folks who, for instance, there's this other breast cancer survivor who's talking about how funding cuts could mean missing out on potential breakthroughs,
Right, it could have huge consequences.
that could save lives in the future.
Exactly.
So it's not just an intellectual debate we're talking about here. It's real world stuff.
Right, it's people's lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So were these rallies sort of like a reaction, we're angry about this, or was there a broader message that was trying to be conveyed?
Well, they were definitely a reaction, a direct response to what was going on politically.
Okay.
But the organizers, they had these bigger goals in mind, too.
Okay.
Like, of course, they wanted to secure funding for research and make sure it's there.
Right.
But they were also calling for science to be taken out of politics. To depoliticize science, they were defending diversity in the field.
Okay, so what does depoliticizing science mean? Like, how would you even do that?
Well, it's basically about making sure that scientific findings are respected. No matter what the political agenda is.
Okay.
It's about protecting the integrity of science and making sure that decisions are based on evidence.
Okay, so not cherry-picking data, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah, got it.
And, there's this quote from Colette Della Wallawa,
Okay.
who is a clinical psychology PhD candidate, and she was one of the organizers.
Oh, wow.
She calls these rallies, she says, it's the big bang kickoff of us saving American science as an institution.
Saving American science.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty powerful stuff.
So what was Della Walla's experience? What was her story that led her to sort of be at the forefront of this?
Well, she was working on a grant proposal
Okay.
for her research on addiction, and she ran into a really weird obstacle.
Okay.
The feds, the federal agencies, they were flagging any grant application that had certain keywords,
Oh, wow.
like words about gender and diversity.
So like women, diversity, female.
Gender, yeah, all these words were suddenly red flags.
What was the thinking behind that? It's hard to say for sure, but it seemed like a move to keep research away from certain topics,
To steer it in a different direction.
Yeah, kind of control the direction of research.
Wow.
And for Della Walla, this was a huge roadblock.
Yep.
Like, should she reword her proposal? Should she just give up on the whole thing?
Yeah.
It was very demoralizing.
And she wasn't alone, clearly.
Right. It really struck a nerve with a lot of people.
Yeah, this idea that your research is suddenly off limits.
Right. It's very unsettling.
And despite all of this, despite this anxiety, we hear that the D.C. rally was described as having kind of a festive air.
Yeah.
So how do you reconcile that? Like, you've got this real concern.
Right.
But at the same time, people are having a good time. How does that work?
It's interesting, right? The articles talk about this kind of strange mix of celebration and concern, you know? It's like people are happy to be together, they're supporting science.
Yeah.
But there's this underlying worry about the future.
Yeah, and you have all these big names speaking, like Francis Collins, the former head of the NIH.
Oh, wow.
You've got Atul Gawande, the surgeon and writer. Even Bill Nye was there.
Oh, wow.
So it was a big deal.
Yeah, it sounds like they really pulled out all the stops.
Yeah, they wanted to make a statement.
So even with all the challenges, there was still this feeling of, we're going to celebrate science.
Right. It's about showing the passion, the excitement, the wonder of science.
Yeah.
You know, even when things are tough.
Absolutely. And, you know, I love this image that I keep seeing of Francis Collins leading a science-themed sing-along.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
On the National Mall.
Yeah.
It's just a fantastic image.
It really captures the spirit of the day.
Yeah, that even in the face of all this, you know, uncertainty, there's still this joy about science and this feeling of community.
Right. It's about bringing people together.
Exactly. Okay, so we're back, and we're ready to kind of dig a little deeper into some of these personal stories behind Stand Up for Science rallies. Right.
And before the break, we were talking about Colette Della Wallawa, who's this clinical psychology PhD candidate who ended up really kind of spearheading this whole movement.
Yeah.
Her story is just so fascinating. You know, she's this researcher. She's deep into her work.
Right.
She's ready to go for it with this grant proposal. And then all of a sudden she hits this wall.
It's like the system was working against her, you know?
Yeah. So remind us again what exactly happened with her grant application.
Well, like you said, she was all ready to submit it. And then, bam, out of nowhere, the feds start flagging these applications with certain keywords.
And those were
like women, diversity, female, gender, like all these words are suddenly a problem.
It's kind of wild that those would be considered, you know, almost like taboo.
Right.
Like, what's the deal?
Research context, yeah.
And they didn't really give a clear reason for it. You know, it was all very hush-hush.
And so it felt very politically motivated.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like they were trying to steer research away from certain topics.
Absolutely. They wanted to control what was being studied.
And for Della Walla, this wasn't just an idea.
No, this was her dissertation research. Like, this was her life.
This was her career.
Yeah, and now she's stuck.
Yeah.
Does she reword everything? Does she just scrap the whole project? I mean, talk about demoralizing.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can only imagine.
Yeah, very frustrating.
And it's amazing that she, you know, she didn't just sit there and stew about it.
Right.
She actually did something.
She took action.
She was like, I'm going to make a difference here.
She went on Bluesky, you know, that social media platform.
Oh, yeah.
And just put it out there like, hey, I'm organizing a rally.
We're going to stand up for science.
And people just went nuts. Like, the response was incredible.
Hey, but she really tapped into something there. You know, like the shared feeling of we need to do something.
Oh, yeah. There was this sense of urgency, like we have to protect science.
Just serious?
Yeah, it was like a damn, you know, all these researchers, students, even people who weren't scientists, they all came together.
Wow, it's amazing how one person's story can really spark a movement like that.
Right. It's really inspiring.
And it's that personal connection that really comes through in all these accounts of the Stand Up for Science rallies.
Right.
It's not just about abstract ideas.
It's real people's lives being affected.
It's real consequences, exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talked about Candace Lowther, the science instructor and breast cancer survivor.
Right, right.
For her, I mean, this was life or death stuff.
Oh, yeah. She was really worried about those funding cuts, especially for healthcare and vaccines.
Those are things that directly impacted her.
Right. It wasn't some theoretical debate for her.
Absolutely. And, you know, her story and all these other stories really remind us that science isn't this isolated thing.
It touches everything.
Yeah, it's connected to our health, to our future, to everything.
Exactly. And that's why these rallies were so powerful. It was about protecting science and protecting ourselves.
Yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah.
And, you know, it seems like there was this real effort to make these rallies not just protests, but also celebrations of science.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They wanted to show the fun side, the excitement of discovery.
So even with the serious stuff going on, there was still this positive energy.
Right, because that's what science is all about. It's about exploring, discovering, having fun with it.
Absolutely. And remember that picture of Francis Collins leading that science sing-along?
Oh, yeah, that was classic.
On the mall? I mean, come on.
Yeah, he was really into it, too.
I love that it just shows that even in the face of all this uncertainty, there's still this love for science.
Right. It's about that shared passion, that sense of community.
Exactly. And I think that's a really important message to get across.
Absolutely.
That science is something that brings people together. It's something to be celebrated.
And that's what those rallies were all about, celebrating science and standing up for it.
Right, because ultimately science is about making the world a better place.
And it takes all of us to make sure that happens.
So we've talked about the motivations behind the rallies, the personal stories, the sense of community.
Right.
But what about the long-term impact?
Good question.
Did these rallies actually lead to any real change?
Well, that's what we're going to find out.
Yeah, that is the question. Isn't it like all of this, did it actually make a difference?
Right, like did anything really change?
Did these rallies actually have an impact, on the scientific community?
It's tough to say for sure.
Yeah.
Like how do you even measure something like this?
Yeah.
We're not talking about, one law being passed or a sudden flood of money into research.
Right.
The changes they were pushing for were way bigger than that. It's about changing attitudes and priorities and that kind of thing.
So how do we even know if that happened? Like, what should we be looking for?
Well, we can look at the obvious stuff first. Like, did research funding go up after the rallies?
Okay.
Were there any policy changes that came directly from the things the organizers were talking about?
Right.
Those are things we can actually check. Hard data.
But there's more to it than that, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
The real impact of these rallies might be the stuff you can't really measure.
Okay.
Like, did they change the way people talk about science?
Right.
Did they give scientists more confidence to speak up?
Okay.
Did they inspire, a whole new bunch of kids to think about going into science and tech?
Yeah. Did it sort of spark that interest?
Exactly. That's the kind of impact that's hard to put a number on.
Right. But it could be huge.
Oh, for sure.
Okay. So do you think the rallies were successful in that way? Like, in terms of changing the overall climate?
I think they were a big step in the right direction.
Yeah. Okay.
The fact that these rallies were happening in 32 cities all over the country,
Right.
that sent a pretty strong message that people weren't going to stay quiet about science.
They were going to fight for it.
Exactly. And it got a ton of media coverage, so everyone was talking about it.
Right. So it wasn't just happening in a bubble.
No, it was national news.
Okay. And so it sort of forced people to pay attention to it.
Exactly. And it forced the politicians to listen too.
Okay. So even if they didn't, immediately change their minds,
Right.
they had to at least acknowledge it.
They had to respond. They couldn't just ignore it.
So maybe it planted a seed.
Maybe. Yeah, it definitely changed the conversation.
Right. And maybe that conversation will continue and lead to more changes down the line.
Yeah, exactly. It's a long game.
Absolutely. Okay. And I'm curious, we've been talking about the U.S.,
Right.
but did these rallies have any impact internationally?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Did they inspire other movements in other countries?
I don't know for sure.
Right.
But I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
The problems facing science aren't unique to the U.S., right?
Absolutely not.
Funding cuts, political interference, misinformation, all that stuff is happening everywhere.
So these rallies could be seen as part of a bigger global push to protect science.
Yeah, like a worldwide movement.
That's a really interesting way to think about it, and it makes you wonder about the lasting legacy of these rallies.
Right.
It wasn't just about that one day.
That sparked something bigger.
Exactly. And as we kind of wrap up our deep dive here, I'm struck by the fact that these rallies weren't just about defending science.
Right.
They were also about celebrating it.
That's
there
right.
was this real sense of joy and wonder.
That shared passion.
Yeah, and I think that's so important.
It is.
Science isn't just about numbers and experiments. It's
Well-
about our curiosity about the world,
It's about that drive to understand things.
and make things better.
And those rallies really captured that spirit.
Yeah, it's this idea that science is a force for good.
It gives us hope. It inspires us.
And it's definitely something worth fighting for.
It really is.
So we've covered a lot in this deep dive, the politics, the personal stories, the goals, the impact of these rallies.
Right?
But I think the biggest takeaway is simply that science matters. It matters to our health, our well-being, our future.
And it's up to all of us to make sure it keeps going strong.
What a great way to end this. This has been an incredible deep dive, so thank you so much for guiding us through all of this.
My pleasure. It's been fun.
Until next time, everyone, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop standing up for science.